To continue our series on topology and actually talk about some of the modeling tools within Blender, I'd like to showcase one of the, in my opinion, most powerful tools when it comes to like non-destructive or modifier works in Blender. So as you can see, one of the projects I've been working on lately is coming to an end. Obviously, there are a ton of different modeling tools involved. Boolean cleanups, radial symmetry, and all that stuff. But for now, I would like to focus on some of the actual radial symmetry. So most of those elements in the front were created non-destructively using a modifier setup. That's actually pretty neat. So I've opened a second file. So obviously there are multiple ways to create radial symmetry in Blender. Now, some of you might be familiar with spinning, but while spinning is absolutely great, I wouldn't regard it as like radial symmetry. For example, those of you that have been working in ZBrush, so essentially, if I'm talking about radial symmetry, I want to do an inset on one element and I want it to apply to all others as well. We also run into the issue that with spinning, like we don't always get tied in manifold meshes, and it isn't non-destructive. So the main approach I've been using, especially if I'm working on a project where precision matters, so there's like an exact amount of cuts and holes, and looking at reference, I also have like to regard or to take into account the difference between those extrusions right here. So in order to work precisely, I want to create a singular element, whether that's a cylindrical mesh or a cube, doesn't really matter. For now, we can even take a plane. And then what we can do firstly is we can use an array. Let's say we go for 10. Add on top of that a simple deform modifier and put it to bend. And now, as you can see, if we put it to 360 degrees on any axis, like nothing is really working. We can solve that by using an empty. Let's just use a plain axis. And then we can use that one as the object. And once we start turning that one around, you can see that we get a result that is much closer to what we want. So for some reason, and I don't know why, props to someone who figured it out some time ago. I myself found that information on like a Reddit thread or something. Whenever we are using like a bend deformer, we have to use an empty and then rotate that empty by 90 degrees on the axis we're working on. So in our case, that would be Y. So RY and then 90. And so now, as you can see, if I'm applying changes to one of those, I'm applying that same change to all the other elements. Obviously, for a smooth circle, we would need a few more loop cuts. But that's like the basic setup. Also, one of the great ways, or one of the best ways to do tires, in my opinion, for cars and vehicles. And one thing I absolutely love is that even if we are putting like edge loops close to one side or close to one another, and the distribution of edges isn't equal, it is still going to remain somewhat circular. So what we can do now is we could go ahead and insert some sort of hole into all of this. Perhaps we might even need a few more loop cuts. And then from here we can just start working on our shape. And the beautiful thing obviously is that we can always go ahead and add elements to either side, and it will just always remain perfectly cylindrical. Obviously, in some ways, for example, let's see, right here, this is like a fairly complicated shape because on one hand we have like cylindrical elements, and then we also have like just planar extrusions. So in those cases, we can use vertex groups to X or include some of our objects, and we have to approach those sort of shapes in a I'd say more methodical approach. So I would actually go ahead and model like a basic shape first, and then from there I could apply the subdivision or the deformation. Then I could do an extrude, and then I could like spin that very tool. Let's try to replicate some of that for now. So I don't know, I can always just go ahead and I can apply almost anything. Then I can make a simple extrusion, and this is where everything gets great. By the way, remember to merge everything by distance after you've applied your modifiers. And now I can actually go ahead, put my 3D cursor to the center of my selection by, I think it's Shift S and then 2. Put my 3D cursor to my my origin to my 3D cursor, then reset the 3D cursor to the world origin, and now we can just go for snap to active. So this is now right in the middle, and now I could go ahead and dissect those elements in order to actually spin by some amount. I don't know, I haven't done the math properly, but this would be like one way to work at those things. So if any one of you knows why I'm having to rotate my empty by 90 degrees, please let me know. I haven't been able to figure it out. So anyways, thanks for watching. Feel free to ask any questions. I hope I didn't rush through it too fast. Yeah, have a great day and keep modeling.